All right, let's get this started here. So welcome to the Gnosis AI Call. This is our inaugural call. So we're super excited to kick things off here. So let me just run through a quick introduction, and then we will hand it over to David Minerish, who's joining us from Valerie, which you'll learn is a significant part of the new infrastructure layer that's being built right now around AI on Gnosis chain. So projects like Autonolas, which David will talk about, make it possible to bring external APIs, automation, and AI on chain. As you can imagine, also the implications are huge, and Gnosis chain is working closely with David's team, with Valerie, to leverage other tech stacks like the Omen ETH markets and the Reality ETH Oracle. If you're familiar with the prediction agent hackathon that just wrapped up with Gnosis Chain and Autonolas. So not only is a renewed focus on prediction markets coming to fruition, an entirely new landscape is arriving with the likes of Valerie. So today we're joined by David Minerish, the CEO of Valerie. I just briefly mentioned Autonolas, a product developed by Valerie. Valerie's mission statement is to enable communities, organizations, and countries to co-own AI systems, beginning with decentralized autonomous agents. So David, let me hand it over to you to talk about Valerie and the recent release of Autonolas as a native token on Gnosis Chain. So thanks for making the time, David.
Yeah, hey John, thanks for having me. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here again. And there's lots to cover. I've brought some slides which will make it a bit easier, so let's get those going. Can you all see this well?
Yep, good to go.
Okay, great. Yeah, as John was saying, I'm working at Valerie. We're a team focused on bringing co-ownership of agentic AI to everyone. Everything we've built so far is open source, and one of our flagship product is Autonolas, or now often abbreviated to just OLAS. OLAS ultimately enables to create crypto's ocean of services. We'll learn about this more. But today I want to be very focused on a couple of things which we've been doing, particularly in the Gnosis ecosystem in the context of AI. So as John was mentioning, there's this prediction agent hackathon which just wrapped up. It had like quite a few partners involved. So there was Gnosis the Chain, who offered also some prizes. There was Reality and the Omen smart contracts, which were used as part of the stack. There were Claros, the court, which is part of the stack and offered some prizes. Off-chain, we had RPC providers like GetBlock, indexers like the Graph, our own stack involved, and I'm probably missing a couple. There's also new projects who are coming on board because ultimately this hackathon is over, but not the project itself, the prediction market setup. And I think what's very exciting here is that, collectively we've kind of broken a little record. So sorry, my screen share stopped here. I'll make sure that comes back on. Record is around safe transactions. So throughout the last 2 months, half of all safe transactions, so those are basically transactions which touch a multisig by the safe protocol. Half of those came from these trading agents in the hackathon. I'll explain in a second a bit more about what we mean here, but I first want to give you the high-level picture. Basically, at Valerie, we increasingly say that, AI agents are the daily active users of many crypto protocols, and increasingly many. And we obviously all want to bring more human users to blockchains and blockchain protocols. And at the end of the day, a lot of the use cases actually lend themselves particularly well to machines, in particular AI agents. And Autonolas is very focused on kind of creating a stack and a protocol, and already offering that to run these agents off-chain in various configurations, more centralized, more decentralized, and then have them take action on-chain. So here in the context of the Prediction Agent Hackathon. The Prediction Agent Hackathon itself had 3 types of agents, and all of them are still active. So there's the market creator agent, which actually provides liquidity in those binary prediction markets, which are being opened on Omen. The second type, this agent is mostly run by the projects involved. The second type of agent is what we call the MEC. The MEC effectively offers the prediction. So in order to do that, it uses various backing AI models. And a big part of the hackathon was for basically community members to contribute basically improvements to the MEC. So you could write a short Python script which be wrapped like a centrally hosted or decentrally hosted AI tool, and then you could submit it and actually earn prizes, and people have done so. And then the third type of agent, and that's in a way the most exciting for people to run rather than code, is the trader agent. And the trader agent basically interacts with those other 2 agent types and takes basically positions in those prediction markets on an ongoing basis. And so the transaction, rise, which you see here, tracked on the Autonolas protocol, comes to a large degree from these trading and MEC agents who have to communicate a lot and use the chain, and obviously also transact in these markets. We'll have some time later to answer questions, so I'm going to focus on a couple more big pieces. John was also mentioning that Autonolas, the native the token basically of the Autonolas protocol, has actually launched on Gnosis chain. So there was a DAO vote earlier this year to cement a strategy whereby the Autonolas DAO will deploy its protocol and token on multiple chains, and Gnosis is sort of our biggest and partner and target so far. And it was really nice to see that, within I think 3 days of deploying this, and together with the Autonolas native funding program, the pool on Balancer, which is deployed on Gnosis chain, reached sort of 9th position in TVL there. So what does this practically mean? Autonolas is the utility token with which you can access a lot of the functions of the network, the Autonolas protocol. And here specifically, the token is used to basically access staking. Now, that is actually something which hasn't been live so far, and we are at Valory very excited to today launch basically Staker Expeditions. Staker Expeditions takes us on a journey from Everest to Coastal before we set sail on the ocean of opportunities, Autonolas. So in the first expedition, Everest, which runs roughly a week, 10 permissionless explorers will enter uncharted terrain by participating in this new staking mechanism. I'll talk about this in a bit. All of this on Gnosis chain. In further expeditions then, through the learnings of previous expeditions, the program will improve, the quality of the script will improve, and it will become easier and therefore feasible for more stakers to join. Ultimately, at Valory, we are very excited about this expeditions because it's a very responsible way to launch a staking program. It allows us to harden all the smart contracts and tools, some of which are still under audit, and then have a governance vote for the DAO to consider making staking a key piece of the OLAS protocol. So if you're interested in participating in this program, then keep watching our Autonolas and Valerie Twitter's accounts, because later today, I think the program will go live. Now, what we are particularly excited about in the context of staking is that we've come up with a new mechanism to effectively reward agents. It's a mixture of proof of work and proof of stake, and the full light paper will be published later this month. You can already get a flavor for it by basically participating in the staking program. We haven't, thrown the baby out with the bathwater in this staking announcement, so some of the details might be a bit vague in there, but rest assured that the full paper will bring all the details. It kind of boils down to a simple idea. So we have these off-chain autonomous agents, which can be having like strong AI elements in the sense of AI models. They can have weaker. They can simply be an automation solution. They can be more centralized in the sense that there's a single agent operated by a single operator, or they can be many agents which collectively form an autonomous service, which is this kind of key primitive in the OLAS protocol. This reward mechanism allows us to basically incentivize these different types of deployments. And that's very exciting because ultimately it enables obviously OLAS protocol and OLAS DAO to directly incentivize these off-chain AI systems. But this is ultimately permissionless technology, which other DAOs can, and we are sure will use to deploy their own use cases on the OLAS stack, and then secure it optionally with their own token. So we're very, very excited about this, and look forward to when the live paper's out to get all your input. I appreciate I probably sailed over a lot of detail. I assumed a lot of context. So if you have any very basic questions or very advanced questions, I think now we have some time, as John mentioned, to dive in and answer them. In any case, just before we do that, our protocols website is olas.network. As I said, I'm CEO of Valerie. You can find that at valerie.xyz. You can find Autonolas or Olas at Autonolas account, and the link to our Discord is down here. So yeah, looking forward to discuss in a moment. Maybe I just forgot, actually, I had just prepared a couple of kind of quick screens to look at if you're really curious about running an agent. There is this hackathon which just ended. That same code still works. It's actually the exact same code which you'll need if you want to run an agent in Staker Expedition. So head over to Valerie-XYZ /trader-quickstart. We can also share that link in the Discord, I'm sure. It's as simple as making sure you have these requirements, which is basically Python and Docker, and then you have to run this one command. And once that is running, and it will sort of be an interactive script which takes you through funding your agent and setting it up and all this. Once this is running, you can basically inspect its logs, which could be overwhelming. We have also very handy commands in there which allow you to effectively see the path the agent travels. So what I mean by this is that these off-chain AI agents, they effectively continuously cycle through a graph, and they can be very complex graph, and they take a path in this graph. So they will decide to go from one state to another, and these decisions are sometimes deterministic, sometimes not deterministic, but they will always stay on this graph. And so here you can really nicely kind of look at what the agent has done in the past. You can see that at some point it was requesting one of those predictions, but then it turned out that that would have been unprofitable to act on that prediction, so it decided not to do that. At another point, it got a prediction which actually was worthwhile taking a bet on, and so it effectively then enters one of those prediction markets. It also continuously checks whether there's any historic markets it's participate in which it could be redeeming for right now. And yeah, I invite you to play with this. It's really, really accessible. And if there's any hiccups you have, there's the Discord. We always have someone there ready to help. And then there's a final script where once you run that, I'm not going to run it now, but it's explained in here, where you can effectively evaluate your trader's performance. And you can get a nice table to see how it's done, how many trades it's opened, and you can obviously head over to Gnosis Scan or one of the other block explorers in the Gnosis ecosystem and check out the transactions your trader is making and how it's contributing to these more than half of safe transactions per month in Gnosis. Over to you, John.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, David, for all that exciting info. We'll look out for the announcement later today about the expeditions. Yeah, right now is a good time for questions for David. So if you want to unmute your mic, go ahead. Or if you feel more comfortable typing your question out in the chat, I can read your question for you. So yeah, go for it. If not, I have a few questions for David, but yeah, feel free to ask. Okay, fair enough. I can kind of kick things off. Are there any plans in the near future to integrate like ZK proofs, or how does that figure into these AI agents, and is there a use case there?
Yeah, great question. So we can break this down into two parts. Are we going to integrate? Yes. So we're talking with at least two projects. I'm pretty sure at least one, if not all of them, will do some form of integration. So where this is particularly interesting in the existing prediction market hackathon setup is at the side of the Mac, so that you would have sort of some verifiability around the basically predictions. So that's what we're going to start with. Or like basically our partners with us. The other way to think about this question is sort of more general. So what Autonolas is really focused on is on effectively these off-chain AI systems which can be co-owned. And what this means is that effectively, like the compute happens, off-chain, and I think in the medium term, it would be very we definitely have like research internally, which is kind of going towards this kind of incorporating more verifiability into the stack natively. So that's where we're very excited about that technology on a fundamental level. I think what we're also seeing is that there's various CK projects, quote unquote, which basically are building on-chain types of AI agents. I think, I would never quite call them AI agents, but people start doing this. So for the sake of it, let's do it. I think they're more like basically better smart contracts. So smart contracts with more functionality, which then have to be called by something else. That's why I wouldn't call it agents, because it's not really agentic by itself. But these are very, very exciting primitives, because if your smart contracts are better and have more capabilities, then obviously what we can do with them is better and more exciting. And I think, a shout out to Gnosis Chain. Like, one of the cool things there is that Gnosis Chain is very cheap to run agents on and deploy contracts on. And so I'm really curious to see what happens once these projects sort of are more mature and we can use them more.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, now's your chance to ask David a question. I have tons, so I don't want to take up all the time. Okay, could you just briefly talk about like what is an agent? What is an AI agent? What constitutes that kind of what are the abilities that like an agent has that make it distinct?
Yeah, yeah. So I think there's many definitions by now, and curious whether that's ever going to converge. But let me define how we think about agents. It's very driven by a large literature which kind of started in the 60s or 70s, multi-agent systems. So the idea there is you have these sort of autonomous software systems which do things by themselves on behalf of someone else. So this someone else could be another software system, or it could be a human. And that's kind of where I start. So if you have that view of an agent, then it's something which perceives the environment. So the environment being what's outside of the agent code, outside of its data, its knowledge, and then has some internals which which do something with this information. So they either store it, process it, or use it to act back on the environment. Ultimately, you have to sort of observe internals and act, and that if you have these three things, then I would say it's a form of an agent. And then the question is, okay, well, an agent itself, if you look strictly at the literature, multi-agent systems is a subset of AI. So if I say AI agent, it's almost like double. But what I think people mean and tend to imply by using the term is that it's a sort of an agent with like latest kind of what we call AI models or AI capabilities, which then often, could be specifically large language models or some form of reinforcement learning or some other forms of AI. I mean, that then breaks very much down. I think where Olas and Valerie particularly focus on is this autonomy piece. What we see a lot is now, particularly with ChatGPT and the AI agent projects which pop up around it, is that people focus on these sort of personal assistant use cases where it's almost like AI agent is just a better function. It's a bit like what I just described earlier with like you deploy some smart contract. And I'm not saying there's something wrong with it, but like what we're particularly excited about are these sort of autonomous AI agents, because now what you get is you get the capabilities of the AI models, i.e., like very powerful inference in some specific domain. You get the benefits of the autonomy, which is that you can move away from the human work. And like, why does this matter? I think like let's zoom out a bit. Like, if you think about technology more broadly, and I think that's like something we discussed a lot with my co-founders, and like I think within Valerie, we're all very kind of aligned there. If you zoom out more broadly, you have like the web 1.0, where it's all about sort of this read, right? And then you have this Web 2, where it's about write, and then as people say, Web 3 is about own. Now, actually, another way to look at this is also that you have basically this thing where we're really focused on sort of applications which have a UI and a UI, like a UI basically. So you have like some screen, increasingly the iPhone, on which I tap around and like do a lot of stuff. And like that's great. Like there's a lot of applications which make a ton of sense. Like I enjoy watching Netflix, I enjoy playing games, I enjoy being on Twitter, as annoying it can be. But there's clearly a whole range of applications which are much more of the sorts where it's like sort of autonomous systems in the background deliver outcomes for you. And this focus on like the full outcome rather than you as a user being like in the loop all the time. I think that's something uniquely AI agents, in the way in which we think about them, autonomous AI agents, can enable, because they can bring, like you can as a user say, create wealth for me, figure out what I could do about this health problem I have, figure out, and not just I'm sitting there with you in a conversation and have to say yes, no, I like this. No. You describe it once and it comes back with the solution. I think that's where we want to head, and that's like kind of the North Star. And I think actually implicitly that is sort of the North Star of a lot of this agentic AI and these form of AGI. And once you have that as a North Star, it becomes really important that we think that you can co-own these systems which create these outcomes, because these outcomes machine will be extremely powerful and extremely valuable. And so if only a couple of organizations like your OpenAI and your Google and your Meta own them, you'll have a problem. It was a long answer than what you might have intended.
No, that was great, and it kind of led into my second question, um, which is just about the co-ownership of these agents and why Valerie wants to prioritize that. So there's a lot of talk about just how powerful, like you mentioned, AI is and will continue to be. And we've reached like the Schelling point with LLMs and ChatGPT with their consumer-facing UI. There seems to be like obviously a product market fit there, but the implications are much larger than that. So yeah, I mean, I asked earlier about ZK proofs. I could see why ZK proofs might be important for like human agency, so privacy in regards to um, how AI is operating, like maybe having the ability to privately command an AI agent, or hide behind um, your identity or something might be important for ensuring the safety and overall just like agency, maintaining human agency, but also co-ownership of the technology. I think is a way to maintain human agency. So I guess less of a question, more of just I was thinking out loud. But is that kind of how you're thinking about the co-ownership of AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think these topics fully overlap, and like I really would underline a lot of the things you said. I think it can be put very simple at the end of the day. We are on a path to agentic. Like when people say, AGI, what they really mean, like what they really worry about is the agentic kind of AI, like the agentic AI which becomes sort of generally intelligent and is able to kind of go out into the world and do things. That is what they're also discussing today in Bletchley, actually, and all these other AI safety discussions that are going around. And so like that's the end state. And then sort of, okay, so you can constantly be worried about sort of us being all nuked, or us, one of us creating a virus and then we're all gone. And there are things we should worry about. I think there's also a lot of overblown discussion there, but that's my personal opinion. I think, okay, let's take this aside for a moment, because yes, we can talk about it. But even in a world where we solve these things, what the current like Meta, Google, sorry, no, I actually have to take Meta out. Google, Sam Altman with OpenAI, and Microsoft, what they're advocating for, right, is that there's a couple of regulated entities who can sort of get these powerful AI models, which ultimately will be agentic, and they don't own them. And if you happen to be one of those lucky shareholders of these companies, maybe that's a benefit for you. Although I wouldn't even be so sure, because ultimately it might just be a benefit to whoever's at the top, if it's at that point still Sam Altman, or maybe none of them. But ultimately, the question is like, okay, if we create these very powerful agentic AIs, like who owns them? And like shareholder structure isn't enough. You can have like some company which like on paper owns them, but like practically doesn't own them. It doesn't control them, doesn't own them. It's like sitting in some data center somewhere. Ultimately, you have to like physically and like on a machine and on an infrastructure level, and then decentralize these systems, right? So that you have basically a set of nodes which are operated by different entities which collectively implement this. And now we can have like certain guarantee suddenly around, like, we know this from blockchain. I mean, I'm talking to the converted, and now we're just applying this to agents. And so now we're suddenly in a position to control things more on a pure code and infrastructure level. And then we can use these mechanisms to also control it on an economic level. I mean, if there's basically three companies in Silicon Valley who own 90% of GDP in the world, probably there's also a couple in China, and maybe some in India. But if that's the case, then I think the future will look extremely bleak for almost everyone, if not everyone. And so, we shouldn't be the only ones. Like, everyone should get up after this. And if you're into agents, I think we should all worry about co-ownership of autonomous AI agents and make sure that, initially DAOs can co-own them, but like ultimately the aim has to be that we have like democratic ways of controlling these super powerful AI autonomous systems. That's sort of, our mission. It's not going to stop tomorrow. It's not going to stop next year. It's going to take a very long time.
Yeah, super interesting. Okay, well, it's always great talking with you, David. We have a question from Ed. Will we be able to stake some of the other services for OLAS rewards?
So it's a good question. So the Staker Expeditions is very focused on this, this particular use case. And as soon as that's over, and as soon as the DAO, accepts these contracts and the associated tokenomic aspects, then I would imagine so. But obviously there's a DAO vote there, so it's not up to me.
And it looks like we have a question from Oak Sprout. Why is now a good time for people to get involved with staking and agent running?
Yeah, actually, I posted about this on Twitter the other day. I think basically, if you look at it from a purely kind of selfish point of view, maybe even this whole AI agent thing is sort of over your head, or something sounds interesting but not quite sure. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're talking about the staking program, like, it's that simple. You run a bit of code, you provide capital as a security budget, and then you earn a return. And that's a very valuable role, having like reliable node operators. Like, I'm sure John and team can sing a song about it. It's key for decentralized architecture. So I think, and I'm sure Oak thinks, and lots of people think, it's very, very important for all us to attract like reliable agent operators, and I'm pretty sure that these will be born, some of them, throughout Staker Expeditions.
See if we have another question. Ad is typing. If Gnosis or someone else wanted to incentivize running agents, how simple would it be for them to provide staking rewards?
So if you have the agent already, like, it's that simple. There's basically a smart contract which you have to deploy and fund. I'm sure right now it wouldn't actually be that simple because we haven't written any documentation about these smart contracts, but that is the intent, that by the end of Staker Expeditions, it's that simple for anyone to do. If you obviously want that to be tied to a specific agent, then you also have to ask the question, okay, well, who creates that agent? And there's the whole dev rewards, which OLAS has. So there's like interesting discussions there to be had as well. So I think if you hop into our Discord, we can help you in either way.
Okay, maybe one more question here. Oh, I thought we had one, but okay. I have kind of a stupid question, just really quick. So let's say we're, I don't know, 10 years in the future, and like AI agents are ubiquitous, and um, crypto is also ubiquitous. Um, is there a way? I'm sure there is, but is there a way to like prove the provenance of an agent? Like, would that be just the wallet address that was the first to deploy that agent, or how would you go back and like, we have this AI agent that's super popular, but it was created 10 years ago. We want to go back in time and see who created it. Would that be possible?
Yeah, I mean, within the limits of in which that is information theoretically possible. But like, so to answer your question, so We basically have this aspect of the protocol called the registry that's been live for over a year in Autonolas. And when you're a developer, you basically register your components in there. And when you're running a service, and stakers will see this, they are actually kind of running a service which wraps the agent, because in this case, the trader service equals agent. In general, service can be many agent instances. So anyway, they wrap that, they can see the ID of that agent, and they can then go to that on the registry. They can see what the agent is made up of in terms of code components, and then they can see who currently owns these components. These are transferable for good reasons, because we believe in this whole idea that developers can sort of make a living from this, maybe put them down in like DeFi protocol and get some, basically lend them out or whatever, or just sell them. So you could then go back and kind of track back who originally created that. And so then you would have an address. And now obviously we kind of come back to what you were saying earlier around like CK technologies being useful in sort of helping, around the identity side without creating a nightmare there. So I think like, already today we just haven't implemented this, but if anyone wants to like be amazing, you could tie one of those CK identity plays to the protocol and then sort of create a link there beyond the wallet address, maybe to someone's credentials or something. But yeah, there's a form of that there, and it can be improved for sure.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, David. We're running a little over time, so thank you so much for a super informative presentation and answering all our questions. Is there anything else you want to share with everyone? Any upcoming conferences or hackathons or?
Yeah, so we're in Lisbon for the next week. So if you're there, hit us up. We're at the hackathon this weekend, and then follow Valerie on Twitter to see where the Valerie team is going, and Autonolas more broadly. There's I think a event calendar feature coming up this week, so then you can also see it on there. So thanks, John, for having us.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. And we will have this call going forward, and the next one will be on the first of the month in December. So look out for that. And thanks so much, everyone. And we'll see you soon. See you on Chain.
See you on Chain. Bye.